And Brandon, it's time to close out the podcast, making our picks like we do every single week. And if you're on YouTube, you're like, guys, I'm seeing you first. Why am I seeing the end of the podcast first? And that's because we put our picks out first so you guys can see them all before the week comes up. We got a before Saturday game coming up. We're starting off with a Friday game. How we do it is this. We pick the top 25 matchups. So if it has a top 25 team in it, we will pick that game. As of right now, because we record the podcast on Mondays, we are both sitting at 18-3 from last week. Tonight's game between Virginia Tech and Florida State will decide who had a better record after week one. Ricky, who's going VT, Brandon, who went with Florida State. One of us will be 19-3. The other one will be 18-4 after week one of the college football season. Also, how we do it is we go off of, for our upsets, we go off of ranking, not the line, although for some of the games I will put out what the line is and who is favored. And I'm trying to think of if I'm forgetting anything else as a base of what I need to explain for these picks. But let's get right into it. If I am, it'll come to me. But the first one, let's get right into it. TCU going up against SMU. What do you got, B?
Got to go with TCU. They look pretty good this past week, and I think that'll carry in again for this week against SMU. And I was just going to say, too, a lot of these couple of week things,
I remembered
it's a lot of, I want to say easy teams, but most of these teams that we're talking about in the top 25 are playing more cupcake level teams. And it doesn't provide a whole lot of upset opportunities, TCU.
That's what I was going to mention. That this video, if you're looking for ones with a lot of upsets, you may not find it this week with the upset special and our buttons. But I'm going with TCU as well. There's no way they get the loss against SMU on Friday. Then we've got our Saturday games. Wisconsin playing host to New Mexico. The Badgers are a 35-point favorite. If Jonathan Taylor was anything like he was in week one, they will surpass that, and you should take the over on that line. I've got the Badgers in Camp Randall all day, every day with the win.
Yeah, I got to go with Wisconsin. They looked so good in week one, and I think that we're going to see a whole lot of that throughout the season.
And then moving on, another Big Ten team. We've got Michigan playing host to Western Michigan. The Broncos may not be rowing the boat anymore, Brandon, as P.J. Fleck is no longer there. They may not have Corey Davis catching passes for them, but what do you think happens in this one? The Wolverines, 27.5-point favorites.
I think that Michigan's going to have a big bounce-back week this week. I think Shea Patterson will figure things out. He'll look a lot more comfortable, have a lot more time, and his week two stats will look a whole lot better than his week one stats.
Now, here's an interesting one. The next one we've got, and the reason why I say interesting is I don't know who sets the lines in Vegas, like who's the guy that's like, this is the magical line for it, but we've got Mississippi State going up against Kansas State, and they're going to be going against each other in Manhattan, Kansas, and the line is Mississippi State by 8.5. And my only thought is, how is Mississippi State not a bigger favorite than almost a touchdown? Barely a touchdown is what they are a favorite of. They beat Stephen F. Austin 33-6 last week. Kansas State barely escaped South Dakota 27-24. So for me, I see that line. I'm putting a bet on it right now. I'm going Mississippi State because they are totally going to beat Kansas State by more than 8.5 points this Saturday.
Yeah, I've got to go with Mississippi State too.
How is that line so low? Does that seem low to you too? Like I looked at that and I went, how is that line so low?
It's a lot closer than what I would have expected. That's
and
for
Nick
sure.
Fitzgerald's coming back too for the Bulldogs. So I mean, they're going to have him coming back. Yeah, I get it's on the road, but I looked at that and I went, whoa, what are you doing? Next game we've got, this was one that could have been an upset special, but UCLA, not only did they lose week one, they might not be without Wilton Spate. He was injured in the first half of that first game. They're going to be going up against Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma. 30.5-point favorite for the Sooners. Who do you got, Chip Kelly and the Bruins or Lincoln Riley, who is now Sean Anderson's Twitter profile picture? Because that was the bet. If FAU lost, he had to do that. You going Oklahoma or UCLA?
Definitely going with Oklahoma. They looked explosive last week. I think they will be again this week.
This was one, if you would have asked me like 2 months ago, I would have been like, yeah, I might pick that upset when the season gets there. Based off of week one, I cannot. Oklahoma rolled FAU, like completely rolled to where I thought that the Owls would put up some kind of a fight. Did I think they'd get blown out? Yeah, but I thought it would be more of like a 38-14 kind of a game, and that's not what we got this past weekend. I got to go with the Sooners. I think that they will continue to roll. The Bruins kind of banged up after week one, and we'll see how that affects their season. Then we got 3 cupcakes right in a row. I'm just going to list my 3 off, and then you can list your 3 off. Virginia Tech, William and Mary. There's not even a line set for this one yet because obviously Virginia Tech hasn't played. Got to go with VT to beat William and Mary at home. Then Oregon playing host to Portland State. This is another one. Oregon, the Ducks, quack, quack, will win this game. And then I feel sorry for the Red Wolves of Arkansas State. They got to go into Tuscaloosa. I said Mobile earlier in the podcast. I don't know why you didn't correct me. Tuscaloosa.
I guess I obviously wasn't listening.
The Crimson Tide, and Alabama will beat Arkansas State. So I went a little rapid fire. What do you got for those 3 games? I believe we're both the same, though.
Virginia Tech, Oregon, Alabama.
Yeah.
Real easy.
A couple of cupcakes. Then we got one that could have been an upset special. It was not for myself. The Georgia Bulldogs going into Charlotte or Columbia, South Carolina. They will play the Gamecocks of South Carolina. This is an interesting game early in the year because in our SEC preview, Sean did this one. There were Gamecock fans that believe that they are going to pull off the upset, and Vegas might be thinking the same as the Bulldogs are only a 9.5-point favorite going into this week 2 matchup.
Well, don't knock South Carolina for anything because I think that they'll definitely be one of those teams that will be around in the SEC, one of those teams that will be an improved team for sure, and I think that they will give Georgia a contest. But I think that Georgia's ultimately going to be the one that comes out and wins it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I got Georgia in this one. They've got bigger things on the mind, and they are going to get the win against the Gamecocks. It might be closer than I'm thinking, but I would probably take the over for that 9.5 in this one. Then the next one, we've got Ohio State, whose offense put up some points. You had Haskins looking really good at the quarterback position last week for the Buckeyes. They are playing the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who come into the game 1-0 after winning in week 1. They did not go with Rashino. They go with Arthur Sikowski, kind of a quarterback battle we were talking about in the offseason. Brandon, the Buckeyes, 35-point favorites in this one. Do the Scarlet Knights get the upset? Do you hit the button?
No, absolutely not.
Not a chance, Brandon's hitting that button.
No, not at all. Ohio State is definitely going to get the win. They're not going to score 77 points like they did last week, but the Buckeyes will get the win.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the same way. Ohio State in this one. And then next week will be a little bit of the test that they will face with TCU before Urban Meyer comes back to the team after week 3. Then the next, I'm going to go rapid fire again. I'll let you go first. The 3 games we got, Ball State, Notre Dame. That's in Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a 33.5-point favorite. North Dakota, Washington, Savannah State, Miami. Who you got in these 3 next games?
Going to go with Notre Dame against Ball State. In the second one, got to go with Washington. Washington really could have been 1-0. I mean, they really could have. They needed to do more offensively. They certainly did. But I think that for the rest of the season, they're going to have a lot of success. They look good. The defense looks pretty good. Had a lot of good stops against Auburn. And offensively, Browning was slow. He got off to a slow start, but he finally figured it out. And you take away one bad blemish on it with one really poor interception that should not have happened. Washington there. And then the third game, who was that again?
Savannah State, Miami.
Going to go with Miami. Miami's going to get a nice bounce back. This will be a game where hopefully Malik Rozier is able to figure it out and not be pressured as much as he was in the game against LSU. You got to go Miami.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same three. Notre Dame going to get the win over Ball State. It's not even going to be close. And then the other two. Washington against North Dakota. Miami over Savannah State should be some easy wins for these teams early in the year. We got 2 more cupcake games where we've got West Virginia going against Youngstown State. I'm going to go with West Virginia to get the win in Morgantown. Then we've got the national champion Golden Knights from UCF. They are going to play host to the South Carolina State. I will pick them to win as well. Who do you got in these next two with Youngstown State, West Virginia, South Carolina State, UCF?
West Virginia, UCF.
Well, and Brandon, not even gonna mention that I thrown out the national championship with Central Florida for yet another week. Then an interesting one, 6:00 game. Do you hit the upset on this one? I think we already gave the answer though in the last segment. Clemson, Texas A&M. What are you thinking? I know we just went into a huge thing about it. I'm going Clemson. What about you?
I'm going Clemson too. The defense is just too good. Texas A&M last week had over 500 yards of rushing on the ground. It's not going to happen again.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is Clemson is a 13-point favorite. So, I mean, the Aggies have a chance to get the upset in this game. I almost picked it, too. I was like, I'm going to pick the Aggies. And
you know why?
Sense of reason.
You know why? It's because Jimbo Fisher is the head coach. That's the only reason. If it was Kevin Sumlin still, it'd be about 28.
Not touching. He lost to not Boise State. He lost to BYU in his first game at Arizona. The funny thing, and I'll say this, out of all the Pac-12 coaches we talked about, remember the first years? Chip Kelly lost. Kevin Williams lost. Herm Edwards, he got the win. He's the only one that got the win out of the first-year head coach.
Kevin Williams?
Kevin Sumlin.
Kevin Sumlin.
I said that.
You said
I
Kevin
was
Williams.
looking
I'm like,
at you.
Was that another head coach? Like, what?
I was looking
Kevin
at
Williams.
I was looking at you like Kevin. I said it like with that
You
questioning.
said it like Kevin Williams. Stop me if I'm wrong. And I did.
And I looked at you. I looked at you the first time, and you were like blank stare. So I'm like, Kevin Williams must be right, even though I don't think that's right. And then it finally clicked in your head, Kevin Sumlin. But Herm Edwards, the only one getting the W out of the three of them last week. I found that interesting. But moving forward, more of these games. We're going to go rapid fire with 3 more. Southeastern Louisiana against LSU. If it takes me more than 20 seconds to say your name, you're not going to get the win. LSU with the W in that one. Florida State, Stanford should be a good first win for Florida State in this one because they're going to lose tonight to Virginia Tech. Then you got Alabama State going into Auburn. I'm going to take Auburn in this one. So LSU, Auburn, Florida State all getting the wins. How about you?
I'm doing the same thing. LSU, Florida State, and Auburn.
And then we've got an interesting one. We've got Penn State and Pittsburgh. And the reason why I say interesting is because Penn State should have lost to Appalachian State. I firmly believe that because they did not play well enough, and that should have been a game that they handled and blew out, giving all the credit to Appalachian State in that one. Now they go up against a team in Pitt where Pitt could be an upset favorite in this one. I am not pushing the button. I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions, but Penn State only an 8.5-point favorite at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions as well. I think you look at last week and you have to hope.
You almost hit the button, though. You almost did when we were making these picks.
Well, I look at it as Pitt is going to definitely try and play spoiler to this. And I mean, Pitt and Penn State, they've got definitely history and things like that. But Penn State is ultimately too good at the end of the day. They're better than what they showed last week. Their defense, you have to hope, is going to be better than what they showed last week. McSorley was also slow to start that game. I think that, week 1 is under the belt. Penn State will most likely get it back, but Pitt's going to give them a test. But I think Penn State's going to pass it.
Well, and the next game we've got Texas trying to get back on the winning wagon after losing to Maryland in game 1. They will host Tulsa in Austin, Texas. I'm going with Texas to get the first win. How about you?
I'm going to go with Texas as well. They got to stop scheduling Maryland, though, to start the season.
I know, right? I know. But the one thing I will say, very good class act from Texas to start the game.
I loved it.
Where they had the open spot for O'Neal, and then they declined the penalty.
Yeah,
it was a class.
It was great.
Next game we got, this might be the only game we differ on. The Trojans, number 15th right now. This is going to change, obviously, after the Monday game. The Trojans going into Stanford, California to play the Cardinal. Cardinal are only 3.5-point favorites. I am going to stick with the favorite in this one. I am going to go Stanford over USC, although I could have easily been persuaded to the other side of this one.
USC is going to win. USC is going to win this one. They're going to go, and they are going to.
And as you threw it down, it still played.
Still played it again because forget about it. USC is going to win this game. JT Daniels is going to come out and he's going to have another solid performance, and for the Trojans, and then they're going to look back at the game film and the tape from the game last week and figure out just exactly what you need to do to stop Bryce Love. They're going to find a way to do it. Bryce Love is maybe not gonna be stopped for only 31 yards or whatever he had last week, but he is not going to go off and explode against this USC defense. USC is going to get the win over the Cardinal.
And the reason why I think I went with Stanford over USC is both these teams had terrible first halves against teams that they probably should have beat handily, and they ended up being. But like UNLV and San Diego State, both of them kept it close against both of the teams that they were playing. And then the Trojans and the Cardinal ran away in the second half. I think this is one where I like Stanford basically because their defense did better against San Diego State than USC's did against UNLV, going with the Cardinal with the win. And then the last two, you got UConn winless on the year going into Boise State. Boise State's a 34-point favorite. I'm going to go with the Smurf Turf to get the win against the Huskies.
I love it. Going to go Boise State as well.
And then the final game, this was one I almost hit the upset special button on, but I will decide not to, and I kind of want to. I'm not going to, but I kind of want to. You got Arizona State in Tempe, Arizona. They will be taking on Michigan State. Michigan State's only a 6.5-point favorite, and the reason why I almost wanted to hit the upset special button on this one is Michigan State did not look like they were all together in that first game against Utah State. Probably should have lost against Utah State. Arizona State looked well in their first game. They looked well coached from Herm Edwards. Part of me wanted to go with Herm Edwards in this one, but I'm going to go against my gut. And I'm going to go with the Spartan and Sparty to get the win in Tempe, Arizona.
I'm going to go with Michigan State for sure in this one. Michigan State, again, another team in the Big East the Big East. I keep saying I just keep throwing off the 10. Big 10 East. The Big East does not exist in football, but
it used to.
But it does not exist anymore. But I'm going to go with them. I think that they're a much more talented team. I think they're also a much more experienced team in what they've got. Arizona State, I don't think that they're at the same level as Michigan State is, and the Spartans should get the win.
And the one thing that fans might have been able to hear is just like the August Patreon podcast, Brandon, which everyone can check out at patreon.com/MostValuedPodcast for as low as $1 each month. You might have been able to hear a little thunder as that one, as a storm has kind of rolled right in during our record time. And that last one, as you were talking, I kind of heard it and was like, ooh, that one was kind of loud. I wonder if that one will be picked up on the recording. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what games you got this week, what games you're looking for, where are your upsets. I didn't have any this week. I know that there were a lot that I was like, oh, this could be an upset, but I didn't want to go with that one. That Arizona State one, I'm gonna sit on that all week and be like, I should have picked Arizona State, especially when they give me a loss because I picked Michigan State. That's one that could definitely be an upset this week. But let us know what you guys have down below in the comment section. I want to thank you guys for checking out the Primetime Podcast, getting to talk a little college football for you guys. A little housekeeping here at the end. Make sure you check out patreon.com/MostValuedPodcast. If you want to be like Matthew, thank you to Matthew for joining us today to talk a little bit Michigan, Notre Dame. Make sure to get a t-shirt down below in the description. You can also get so at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can catch MVP each and every day. And then make sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Make sure that you tell everyone that Brandon and I are not a couple of good old boys that only talk about the SEC, as I still believe that is the only comment that we have for the Primetime Podcast as of right now. Want to thank you guys for watching this on YouTube. Want to thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.